My name's Joe Paden. I do history talks, walks, tours, lectures, events, genealogy. Pretty much this is what I do. I've been doing this probably. I've been doing these for the American Cruise Line since 2016, and people really seem to like it. I do my best. First, is anybody here like history experts?
Experts, no.
Okay, I just like to know that way.
Just enough to be dangerous.
You know, that way it lets me know how much I can make up. Anyway, no, my family's been here. I was just telling somebody else, I've been here. My family's been here for, well, we're down here. Everybody, well, I'm 13th generation. Is how many generations we go back. It was my 11th great grandfather moved up here in 1661, and we've been here ever since. But everything that you see where that truck is up there with the brake lights. Mm-hmm. In 1866, that's where the land stopped. This was about 10 feet of water. None of that existed. All right. What they did was they brought the railroad down, and right after the Civil War, there was a guy's named William Tecumseh Sherman. He was down in Richmond. He tore up every railroad track all the way up the whole Atlantic coast. So they needed a port, and Crisfield was it. And after, within a few months after we started getting the railroad built, we started shipping out oysters. And a lot of oysters. All these Civil War veterans come back from the Civil War. They all come over here. There was even one guy that paddled across Chesapeake Bay on a log. Rode on a log, come across. That's what they say. I mean, it's in the. And I didn't make that up. I promise. But what we got is that this is probably one of the last and largest working waterfront seafood towns on Chesapeake Bay. A lot of it. When I was a child 30 years ago, work boats been going in and out here as hard as we can go. It's a change in culture, change in way. Now, tomorrow y'all going to be going to Cambridge. Next day you go to St. Michael's. Those places got their stuff together with their history, with their historic heritage tourism. Crisfield's still trying to hold on to the past, and I'm trying to pull them back. I'm trying to do everything I can to say, look guys, we got a good story. So the only thing I got for binder, I'm gonna take you guys in some shucking houses and stuff while we're still doing it, but I try to give you guys a good show. Okay, so but I'm not gonna keep us out here in this wind very long. And if anybody gets chilly or anything like that, I'll stop and we'll stop behind the thing. And but we're gonna head right off and we're gonna stop right there where that little right. Okay, so this is a photo from 1867. It's a steamboat called the City of Norfolk. There's a locomotive right here. It's an old wood-burning locomotive. It's called the Newcastle. This came here November 4th, 1866. 165 years ago on this day. This steamboat was right on the other side of that dock. Okay, this is okay. So all right, so this gives you a little bit of perspective. Okay, so here's all the way back 1612. You had fur trappers coming up here in 1620. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with the area, with the history of Jamestown, stuff like that. 1620, they were still having a really hard time with the Powhatan Indians. They were wards, they were masters. I mean, these people were some rough people. I mean, they were rough characters. And so what they were doing is they were sailing up here and getting furs. All right, furs was a really thriving industry. However, England was paying for these people to come over here, and they can't make much money on the fur. They needed land. They wanted the land tax. They wanted to bring people over here and do what's called quit rent. Okay, quit rent's where you, just like land tax. Okay. Then you bring these people, and you got indentured servants. Okay, everybody's probably familiar with them. Where you come over, you work for us, good. Everybody. All right. Now, But this is 1612. It's 5 years after Jamestown. It says oysters, they're being whole banks and beds, and those are the best. I've seen some 13 inches long. That's an oyster like that. That's a big daggone oyster. That's a meal right there. That's a big oyster. Now I've seen shells that big. I've seen the shells. I mean, they around here we call them dinner plates, and that's what they're called. So, now here's a quick little cool factoid not a lot of people know. This guy's name's William Claiborne. This guy was 1629. He was here. Right on the other side, this is the Tanger Sound on this side. The Pocomoke Sound is on this side. Before Maryland came up in 1634, this guy William Claiborne, he founded Kent Island, okay, which is up on top of the bay, all right? He was trading for Virginia. Here comes the Calverts. Calverts are the ones that settled Maryland, and they told Claiborne he could still trade furs, however he had to pay them tax. He'd been here. He'd fought with the natives over in Powhatan. This guy was a rough cat. You can still see he's got his armor on. Okay, but he told the Calverts, like, he ain't paying you nothing, right? And so what they did is they sent out boats at him, and the very first naval battle in America was between this guy and it happened probably less than 2 miles away from here. But what I find is cool, this guy was the first person charged with piracy in America. Okay. And we've been here ever since, okay? Now, what we're standing in now is called Goodsell's Alley, all right? So, when the train came down the tracks, extended out, this was a bridge. And what they did is they had a law to where, see, New England had, is anybody aware of like the oyster conservation where they're trying to plant the oysters and do the oyster seed and stuff like that? Okay, well, okay, but a lot of people think that's a new thing. However, in 1760, New England, Long Island Sound had already ran out of oysters. All right, they had banned dredging. Okay, dredging is where you take, it's like a big rake where you pull it through. Okay, but I'll be showing you one of these on another one of our stops. But they had banned dredging. So they had discovered through this time that the oyster spat, okay, the spat is the larvae, okay, that settles on the shell, and okay, in the shell, but these New Englanders came down and wanted the shell. They didn't, yes, they wanted the oysters, but what they really were trying to get was the shell to take back to New England to plant up in their bed so that way they could restock theirs. So what Crisfield did was like, look, you got to shuck them on site. You got to dump the shells on site. That's why we got the shells. Now, I've done a lot of digging around here, and you're going to get, if you go down, you're probably going to get 7-8 feet of straight oyster shells.
Wow.
However, and I've done a lot of digging here. There's a lot of whiskey bottles mixed in with it. A load. I'm talking a load. But this was Goodsell's Alley. This guy James Goodsell, he come down from New Haven, Connecticut, is where he come down from, and he leased everything on this side of the railroad tracks all the way out to where we're going to be going. Now, everywhere, as I said, everywhere we're going to be walking there was water. However, within 5 years, everything was here. 5 years, this whole place was built. Okay? So, you got all these people coming, all these oyster boats. There were, in 1880, there were 1,400 oyster boats registered in this harbor. Okay, and that's a heck of a lot. Now, these oystermen, this Goodsell's, he's been in business, in the oyster business for many years, and he had learned what oystermen like. They like to drink, they like to gamble, they like to fight, and they like to engage in other ill-repute businesses, which I won't get into. Okay? This was the pathway to that. I call this the gateway to debauchery. Okay, because this is what it was. I mean, it's literally what it was. So there were some of the early newspaper records some of the early newspaper records said that there would be groups of up to 50 men fighting all in one little spot. And then, okay, there was a big building right here at the end of this road. A guy, okay, when they fought, he would raise his window up and fire down buckshot into the crowd. He said they would move and just start fighting again on the next block. Okay, there was a place right here called the Arena. This is where they'd bring in the dancing girls and all that stuff. Now, I'm not lying to you. The Wild West, this place made that look like Candyland. I'm not lying. I mean, a lot of people don't believe me, but it's really, really. And so, 1875, 7 years after the train came, they really, really, really had to stop. I mean, the women wouldn't come downtown. All the church people were complaining. It really become a bad. And there was a load of business, load of money coming in, but nobody could come down here. This is where the post office was. This is where everything was. So, what they did is, here's a cool little. They used to have the courtroom a little bit up the ways, and the Justice of the Peace owned the hotel where the courtroom was held. He beat the gavel on the saloon, bar on the saloon. Okay, because this is where they held the court, and he'd say, "Court's in session." However, the bar is open as usual. Okay? but a few years later, it become you just couldn't do it. So what they did is they put an all-out prohibition on alcohol. All right, this was in 1875. Well, they didn't do anything. All they did was create a new industry, moonshining. They said all the marshes out here glowed at night from all the fire. They said it was lit right up like a city. This guy here at the Arena, he went. They run him out of town. He moved down here to Fox Island. Fox Island is right where the Maryland-Virginia boundary is. And what he did is he built them we call them shanties, but it's a house built on poles. And he built it right on the line, part of it Maryland, part of it Virginia. When the Maryland law come, he'd push it still over into Virginia. When the Virginia law came, he'd push it back up into Maryland. And he would have to do this on a regular basis and stuff. So this is everywhere that we're going. All these places were built on poles. Holes were put in the floor. They would dump the shells right up, and it was built up from underneath. Okay, we're gonna go right on along down this way, and we're gonna go around. And
which way are we gonna turn? Right?
Yep. We're gonna turn right. If you turn left, you're gonna get wet. Okay. All right. You guys, a sample. All right, we'll walk back this way so we're in a shop. Okay. Be really careful on the floor, slick. Be really careful. If you fall, you're not coming out. Big hard oysters. We'll chuck you. You're fine. You're fine. Okay, now, has anybody ever been around shucking or oyster shucking or anything up? No? Good. Where are you from?
Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach. Uh-oh. No, gotta watch my language.
Well, I'll get 10 oysters. It will take me an hour to shuck them.
Virginians sometimes don't let my owners run one. We're all the same. We're all the same. Well, here's a little funny little anecdote from my Virginia friend here. 1620, as I'm saying, they were coming up here trading furs. And what they did was, this was all originally Virginia. Virginia originally went all the way up to Pennsylvania. So there was conflict. But, so, what they tried to say is they tried to, is when the oysters started coming, Virginia tried to take Crisfield within Virginia. This is a Supreme Court case for Virginia trying to take back Maryland in 1872. 300 or talking 200 years after we founded the state. Okay? Let's put it back and notes that way. We're not with we're going to move back where they're working in here. Ad picking. I want to just read this for you real quick while we're in here, and that way we're not. Okay, this is from 1925. Make sure I get this on camera because I want these Crisfielders to hear this. This is from 1925. Now, today, if you search up Crisfield on the internet, it said Crisfield is the self-proclaimed seafood capital of the world. Wrong. We didn't call ourselves that. New York called ourselves that. Chicago, Boston. There's a place in Detroit right now called Fulton Fish Market. It's one of the biggest fish markets in the world. Today, that guy in there, he's been on the phone with Fulton for somebody up in one of these markets. All these Crisfield dealers have been on these phones. 100 years ago, Fulton used to call Crisfield get the prices. Okay? I've got article after article after article. And why this is impressive is because, I mean, we were only in town a couple thousand people. We were only here for probably 30, 40 years. And within a matter of years, we really, I mean, this place is a boom town. I mean, it's exactly what it was. But by 1925, we were in the midst of being the seafood capital of the world. And here's from 1925, Crisfield Times, the world's largest crab market. Crisfield is beyond a shadow of a doubt the largest crab distributing point in the world. And it has gained this evidence during the last few decades, not only on account of its natural advantages, which have been allowed to lie dormant, but by the enterprise and the progressiveness of its citizens. It has within its limits nearly 100 crab houses. I'm sure it's probably a little bit difficult to imagine or picture the activity that's going on. I live a mile away from here, probably not even that, but summertime, the aroma of steamed crabs is so strong, you can smell it with the wind, right? But also the smell of crab shells will be right behind it. So you got your good and your bad, but however, it smells like honey. I miss that smell. I ain't smelled it in a long time. Sometimes I smell it, the wind blowing right, but if your boat coming in and out, I mean, I'm talking 4 miles away. So anyway, we're gonna tread on. This was the customs house, okay? U.S. Customs. This was back in before the turn of the century. You had to. Crisfield was a port of entry. Okay. Now it wasn't so much as immigrants coming here, but back then you had to. The captains had to carry out. They had to report who was on their boat every time they come in. This was for 2 reasons. A lot of yellow fever, typhoid fever, and stuff like this. I mean, this stuff would come in and it would wipe out, you know, the Spanish flu, all that type of stuff. They were really, so you had to come in, you know, you had to tell anybody when your boat was sick. But another thing you had to do was you had to see if anybody was Shanghai. Shanghai was a really big problem. Really big problem. Let's go around to the front. The wind's blowing up this road.
They're known as human trafficking.
Things were pinned together. That's 5 logs pinned together. And this would make the hull of your boat, okay? So the bug eye, when you go to St. Michael's, you can see what's called a bug eye. All right? A bug eye is a skipjack with 2 masts on it, but it's made out of logs. A skipjack's not made out of logs. But what you're going to get is the very first bug eye was built less than a mile from here by a guy named Clement Sterling. The very first pungy was built in 1840 about a mile and a half from here. All right. A lot of these other places don't like to say this or whatever, but it's really embarrassing me as a historian and somebody that's trying to share history that you guys are seeing this in other places and not here. I mean, it really burns my britches. I ain't lying to you about it. But ain't nothing I can do. But, so, what you got is you got thousands of these boats out here. I'm talking over here, that's called Jersey Island over there. All right? They would dock all in here. You could walk all the way across the whole water and go from boat to boat and walk across. I mean, this is how packed in, jam tight. They would wait out there for a half a day just to be able to get into port. And so you had anybody from Crisfield could sail. It was just the thing what we did, still do. But you needed a crew. This crew couldn't always come, so what they did is up at Ellis Island, they put out an ad, okay, for workers. Up in Baltimore, they had the workers, okay. Youth. All right, but
We know.
but they couldn't fill the jobs. So what they did is they started putting out employment agencies. They would and then they started going to the saloons. They would buy a guy shots all night long, get him half loaded up, hit him over the head down to the thing. He'd wake out here on a pungy boat the next morning out here. Now, their main target were German and Polish immigrants. Baltimore was loaded. I mean, these people were flooding into America. The reason why they wanted them is because they couldn't speak English. And they couldn't, they couldn't turn people in. So what they did was a lot of times it was called getting paid by the boom. And you'd be out on an oyster, and what you'd do is you'd be sailing. You would call your German mate up. All right, he would be on the side of the boat. They'd spin the wheel. Here comes the boom across the top of your head. You'd call him. He'd look up. They'd smack him in the face. And that's it. They're gone. And I'm trying to get a woodman's monument, like a statue down here, for all the people that drowned and been lost in the water. And I really think that would raise our awareness, our local awareness of just how important and just how significant our history is. So I got volunteers right now that are searching through the databases, the death records, and we've been doing a little over a month, and I got over 200 people. I got over 200 names so far, and I've only been through 30 years. And of the people that's drowned out here, oyster, and that's a load of people. And so the customs house, to get back to that, is when you came in here, they wanted to know the names of who's on your boat. If the names were different, where's this guy at? I've got journals of these old captains that they'd be like, we saw another floater today, 2 today, saw one yesterday. Floaters is people just out here floating in the sound, and so when you come to the customs house, if this guy was on your boat when you went out, where's he at now? And if he wasn't on the boat, so. All right, we're gonna go down now. One real quick thing: don't believe in the crosswalks. We still don't understand them down here. Okay, you probably don't have to worry about it, but just in case. Now, the crabbing industry. In the 1870s, when the oyster started, nobody ate crabs. Crabs, now you think of crabs as sitting around with a bushel basket, you steam them up. Has everybody here eaten crabs?
We actually had a class on the boat. A couple days ago, they had a class on
How to pick crabs. That was from a local.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Local where?
And yesterday, where were we?
Yorktown.
Yorktown.
Alright, anyway. I'm teasing. Anyway. Yorktown, I figured you'd be able to see your house right there, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I'd went to Alaska or Mississippi or somewhere. Anyway, so 1870s, there wasn't a crab market. Now some of the rich, the elite parties, they would have them, but picking the crab, people just didn't know how to do it. Now, crabs were something you ate during hard times. Now, the soft crab, is everybody familiar with the soft crab? Okay, it comes out this backside of the shell. There's another spot over here where I'm going to get into that a little bit more. But, so you got this train coming. Oysters were caught in every month with an R in it, from September to April, okay? May, that comes out there, right? May, June, July, August. It was just too warm. Now, here's how profitable oysters were. They were shipping in ice from Maine to put on this train. They had schooners coming down, steamboats coming down from Maine to bring ice to Crisfield. It would, but it was so dense, it was so thick, and they would pack hay. It would be sliced in like foot blocks, and they would slide it in between the oyster cans, you know, and then and it would last until they got to fill it. Now these trains, these were express trains. When they left Crisfield, they went straight to New York, or went straight. You know, they didn't stop or anything like that. So I mean, it was overnight. They were there before early in the morning when they left here that night. But so you had, when the oysters went down, you had all these summer months with you know, with not much cargo. They did ship tomatoes and strawberries out of here. However, Delaware, you got a town every 7 miles. Delaware used to be like the peach capital of America about the 1800s. Sorry, Georgia. All right, but you get it's hard to compete. You can't compete with these markets that are closer because you're paying more for freight. So these Crisfielders are like, man, this ain't cutting it. We got to get something. What do we have? There's a working waterman there, and he's probably, I think he's from Smith Island, Tangier. That's called a dead rise boat. Okay, that's evolved from the skipjack. They just took the mast off the front of it. It's actually called a bowsprit. Would be on the front, and they put a cabin on it, and that's called the dead rise. Those actually originated over in Virginia. See, I give them credit where credit's due. Okay? They did over Matthews County in that area. Okay, that's a little north of you, right? Matthews.
Yes.
Move it up. And okay, so anyway, so they looked around and they were like, you know, what do we got? You know, what do we have here that we can ship on the boat? You know, that we can ship on the train in the summer. And they're like, well, you know, we're throwing crabs back hard as we can go. Crabs were actually thrown back in the water by the oystermen. And they're like, okay. So, and I've got the records from the early, from the mid-1800s, mid-19th century. And the government actually kept pretty good records back then. They knew we could go to, say, Delaware. How many fish were, how many rockfish, how many trout, how many cod, or just, you could get anything, you know, it was very well documented. Blue crabs, the only two places in 1860s that had a blue crab market was Hampton, Virginia, and a place up in on the Delaware, up in Jersey, on the Delaware Bay. But it was for soft crabs, but it was used for bait to catch fish. People didn't eat them. So what they did is they created. Now this is what I attribute Crisfield's success to during that time, and I also attribute the lack of this. Also attribute to our downward decline. Is that these people created a market for the blue crab. They created a dish. They would go up with the salesman. They'd go to New York and say, "Here, let's start serving this in your restaurant." And within a few years, it was blue. People were eating soft crabs first. Now, I've studied and looked through these newspapers in the 1870s, and the very first place that I found where people who were selling and engaging in crabs was right there where that boat is. Now, it's now Maryland's most popular resource, pretty popular for Virginia as well, but it all started right here. Another important thing is there's a house. If you go in your boat, you'll see a house out there. It's called Lavalette. This was built by a guy from Pennsylvania who come down with the railroad, and he saw all these terrapin turtles everywhere and wouldn't know what people were doing with them. And they were like, turtles, you know, you might eat if it's froze up or if you can't find chicken or something like that. But this guy took and experimented and made a turtle soup. And it became in the late 19th century, early 20th century, it was one of the most popular delicacies up in the Northeast, and it was shipped all around. Well, one of this guy's partners, hey, you ready to leave?
No, you're good.
Okay.
I got paperwork to do. You're fine.
All right, all right. He had somebody working for him, and this guy that was working for him over here on this terrapin farm, down there where that house was where the first terrapin farm was. Okay? This guy that worked for him went off to start a university in Maryland, and he made the terrapin, the logo, from where, you know, and that's another, you know, not a lot of Crisfielders know that. So, are you fit good? You're filming. And, so anyway, but so and then once again, I mean, crabs was another thing. But like I said, we didn't. Crisfield's not here because of a popular or because of a natural resource. Crisfield's are here because people were out like, let's take what we've got, let's package it, let's market it, let's sell it, and put a bow on it. You know what I mean? And so this is the mindset that created this. This is the mind, and the lack of the mindset